Welcome everyone to our Diamonds February panel on dating when you are chronically ill. In the spirit of Valentine's Day and things like that, I've heard a lot of questions over the years. I've had a lot of questions over the years on what romantic relationships can look like when you're chronically ill. Some of those questions are practical of like, well, I am exhausted and what does like even going on a date look like? Or some of them are more big existential questions of like, will a guy ever love me and enter into what I'm going through? And so we're going to talk about all of the questions, and the questions are going to be first come, first serve. So please go ahead even now and start putting your questions in the comments, and we'll just go in order that they show up. But I am here with Tabitha Bell, Ashley, and our special guest, John. Surprise! John volunteered to hop in last minute to add a male caregiver perspective. And so we're so happy to have him here with us. But we're actually going to start off maybe just introducing ourselves. So share a little bit about yourself, about your health context, and maybe just like your relational context as well. Just where are you at in life so that those who are watching know a little bit of what they could ask you. So I am I have had Lyme disease, multiple chemical sensitivity, and toxic mold poisoning, and it's been in all ranges. So sometimes I've been like bedbound, unable to do basic things for myself. And at this point in life, I'm able to function pretty well on my own. And there's just been a whole range of experiences connected to relationships in the midst of all of that. I was chronically ill before I met my now husband, and so that was definitely part of conversations at the beginning, middle, continuing on now in our relationship. And so I got married just a year ago. So I am just a newlywed. And that's a little bit about me. But Tabitha, do you want to share a little bit about you?
Hi, so I'm Tabitha. I'm 29 years old and I am very much single. I am kind of a late bloomer when it comes to dating and all of that. I didn't actually start dating until I was 28 years old. So, yeah, my dating experience is largely online. And as far as health stuff goes, I have chronic pain, and a couple of working diagnoses are fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis. So we're still sort of narrowing those down, but yeah, it gives you an idea of where I'm at.
And I'm Ashley. I am 26. This is my husband, John. I have myopathic Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and endometriosis, and both of those things come with a whole host of other fun side effects and things. I have been chronically ill since 2019, so about 7-ish years, and I got sick about the same time that I met John. So we've been together for 7 years. We've been married for 5 years in August. So yeah, we were high school sweethearts, and we met through 4-H. I don't know if anybody knows what 4-H is, but it's kind of like an agricultural program. That's how we met. And in our story, we also were long distance for a couple of years. We started dating in high school, and then you left for college. And you went to Florida, and we were long distance for a couple years. We got engaged when you were in Florida. You came back, and then it was the pandemic, and we got married in the pandemic. And then that's just like kind of our beginning of our journey. John is my caregiver, but he is also a chronic illness warrior. He has muscular dystrophy. So yeah, Becker's muscular dystrophy.
John, is there any other things we should know about you?
No, I'm a horticulturist, and that's my passion, and also taking care of Ashley. She needs it.
Cassie Sky in the chat says she's a fellow forager. Well, let's go. Actually, okay, first a housekeeping thing. If we end up getting into any topics that are sensitive or that there might need a trigger a warning for, we will let you know, and I will also put it up on the screen so that you can just mute it until that goes away, and just be clear for that. So we'll let you know if we're going to get into anything like that. But we're going to kick off with the question that I feel like I get asked the most, or that I have heard from many people. And so, what would you say to the chronic illness warrior feeling like love will never happen for them?
I think, and obviously I'm speaking as somebody who's, still waiting to see if love will happen for me, but I think the thing that I would encourage you to remember is that there are plenty of people who have chronic illness who did get married. I mean, just here in the panel, we've got an example of 3 people who have some degree of illness, and they all found love. They all found a spouse, and there are plenty of others. And so your illness, your health struggles don't disqualify you from God being able to provide a spouse for you. God is totally sovereign, and he is well able to cause you to cross paths with somebody who is willing to step into that journey with you. So don't ever feel like there's not hope for you, or write yourself off. God can make it happen.
Tabitha, what encourages you, gives you hope? Like what, as you're in that longing but waiting, and it hasn't happened for you yet?
Honestly, I think what gives me the most hope isn't necessarily putting my hope on the idea that I will get married. Because if I put my hope there, then all of the ups and downs of dating and singleness, it becomes very much an emotional roller coaster. And depending on where my circumstances are at on any given day or week or month, my joy will fluctuate with that. So instead of doing that, instead of putting my hope on finding somebody to marry and getting married and having a happily ever after that way, I've really just put my hope in the fact that God is a good father and he is a good provider. And God has promised in his word to provide me with everything that I need for life and godliness. And so if a husband is part of that, then God will provide that. And if not, then God will provide me with the contentment and the joy and the peace that I need to fully embrace being single for however long that is, whether it's for now or forever.
Thanks for sharing that. Ashley and John, anything to add?
I was searching for the unmute button. No, I love what Tabitha said. Had been thinking about this question prior to the piano, and just kind of piggybacking off of what Tabitha said. I wanted to tell that person who may be struggling with hope that you have the King of the universe who loves you. You have somebody who loves you so deeply, and he has a plan for you. And whether you're praying for a spouse right now or a relationship right now, I mean, the answer could be yes, the answer could be no. It's probably just keep waiting, and you have to just trust and that God's timing is perfect. So yeah, no, I love what you had to share, Tabitha. Thank you.
Yeah, I think of a conversation that I had with a friend. We both have a chronic illness. We were both dating someone for the first time, and we were just kind of going through it together. And so, first of all, it's helpful to have someone to go through it together with. But we were talking about No, she's talking about like I have all this stuff, like I have these different experiences and these different needs and this, the things that in her mind made her a difficult person to love or a difficult person to be in a relationship with. But what we were talking about was like God, everyone has that. It's not that like chronic illness disqualifies you from a relationship, a dating relationship, from marriage, because everyone has their own different needs, their own different quirks, their own baggage, whatever that might look like. It's just that chronic illness makes it a little more visible and it kind of comes to the surface a little more early on. And in many cases, not all cases, even it might not be immediately visible to those around you. But in my relationship with my husband, like it's just having to have it like putting like it just kind of allowed him to enter into it more quickly. It kind of just grew our relationship and deepened it more quickly than it had to because we were going through something hard together, even early on. And so we can think that I don't know. My friend and I at the time were worrying that what we had, physically not right with us disqualified us in some way, but in other ways it really grew like we were more mature than we would have been. We had more compassion than we would have been. We were able to love more patiently than we would have been otherwise. And so in a lot of ways, it was like a benefit to the guys that we were with then, and some kind of like disqualification.
Yeah, I was going to say it chronic illness, while it does have, its difficulties, it does have its cons. It is something that God can use to sanctify us. And therefore, in a lot of ways, it can actually be something that like gives us that little bit of extra that we can bring to a relationship. Like you were saying, of compassion and empathy and, just generally thinking of yourself less, or not getting as hung up on the little things, realizing that, stubbing your toe generally isn't that big of a deal because, you're dealing with chronic pain. So, you've got more perspective. So,
being flexible, it has to be really flexible in a relationship. It brings that
having flexibility. Having chronic illness doesn't just deplete you, it can also sort of give you some strengths and some benefits by way of character growth and maturity.
Well, we can also circle back to this if other thoughts come to mind. Feel free to shout them out. But maybe we can shift into a practical question of what are practical date ideas for quality time when you have limited energy and physical ability, or even long distance. I know all four of us have done long distance at various points. What have dates looked like for you as people with health conditions?
We have to keep coming off mute. Sorry. I think our background sound may have stopped. We had the air conditioner or the heater running. He just mentioned, well, you go ahead and say it.
Yeah, so when we were just thinking of long distance, when we were long distance, we had a box that we would send back and forth to each other, and we put like little notes and knickknacks and like things we found.
And I usually painted it. It was the same. It was an Amazon box, guys. It doesn't have to be fancy. Yeah. It was an Amazon box that I kept adding like little painting doodles to, and it was just a fun way to stay connected. I mean, we called each other every day.
Yeah.
And we would talk for hours, but it was also just another fun thing to do. So we have lots of other ideas, but I want to hear some of your ideas, Sarah, because I know you're really creative with some at-home dates. I said I have some more date ideas, but I know that I wanted to hear from you because I know you have some fun at-home date like ideas.
Well, our most recent one was we cut up pieces. We played Twister, which for some chronic illnesses won't quite fit, but cut up pieces of paper to be our Twister board because we didn't have one. And Just put it on the living room floor. The living room floor has, since we've gotten married, been the location of a lot of dates. We've done like movie nights where we blow up an inflatable kiddie pool and like put pillows in and watch a movie, or a picnic in the living room. Like maybe you don't have the energy to go out to a restaurant or even go out to a park or something like that, but put a picnic blanket on the floor and some big candles and make it look pretty. And just like little things to make it special, and also cost effective are some things that we've done. Long distance dating, yeah, all the ways to make video calls. And long distance dating, video call dates for like long distance works, but also for even if you live in the same town and you're just not able to like be up and about physically or things like that. I feel like can still be helpful. Yeah, I'd be curious to hear Tabitha's ideas on this too, but sometimes it's been like, oh, just like some specific conversation starters and doing that, or it's been like cooking in our own spaces in our own areas. Because at one point we had a 9-hour time difference, and so it was very much like separate, but getting to still like cook together, or make like do it one time for Valentine's Day when we were long distance. I bought like identical little Lego sets and we like built them but separately but the same one, things like that. But yeah, I don't know, what are your ideas, Tabitha?
So truth be told, I haven't gone on a lot of like in-person dates, so that really hasn't been a thing for me. But one of the things that I found to be helpful in dating, as somebody who deals with brain fog quite often, I tend to like either brainstorm or just Google questions to ask on dates. And I literally have like a list that I keep with me, like on video dates or something. And that way I don't have to like sit there and try and think of something, or if I start to get foggy or something, I've got that list of questions that I can reference. Um, and even like ask your friends for question ideas. What are questions that you asked your spouse, or what are, questions that or discussion starters that you've had, in your relationships, and getting those from other people, and just keeping a running list of questions so that you never feel like, the brain fog is besting you, has been super helpful for me.
Yeah, okay, you were telling me recently about a question. I'm trying to remember what it was that you have found very helpful. Are there any that come to mind for that you would share with people?
Like specific questions to ask?
Yeah.
Okay, so one of my favorite questions to ask is, who are the top 5 most influential people in your life?
Yes.
Because, often we are who we hang around. And so hearing that answer has always been like really telling, for me, when, trying to discern somebody's character. Another question that I think is really helpful is asking somebody on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do people come to you for advice? And on a scale of 1 to 10, how often do you go to other people for advice? And again, that's just a really good way to sort of discern whether, somebody is wise, whether somebody is teachable and humble, is just getting an idea of um, how they interact with the people around them, especially, if you are long distance, if you're not there to like, see how they interact with people in person. Those are some helpful questions.
I love those. Some other things that have been helpful for my husband and I is the app Agape. I put it in the chat, but Agape is they just have lots of questions for all kinds of relationships. So if you are far away from parents, from siblings, from friends, whatever, go check that app out. If the free version even is great. And then another thought is girldefined.com. They have several lists of like, I don't know, like don't know, 30 to 50 questions. I can't remember how many, but a long list of questions that can be helpful.
I have a list of theirs. It's like 170 questions to ask in a relationship.
There
It's
you go.
super helpful. So, yeah, I mean, I haven't always gotten to use all of them because, some of them are more like it, once it starts to get really serious, like super like deep personal questions. But yeah, there are some really good just conversation starters.
All right, John and Ashley, what date ideas did we miss? What are the ones you have for us?
Let's see, some of the ones I wrote down. We love computer gaming, and so that's something that can be easily done from home, and it can be like set up on the couch ergonomically, like adapted to your needs. We also love board games, so we also like make our own like makeshift tables to be able to do it on the couch. And you mentioned movie nights and forts. We've done that. We've made like our own pizzas. You help me with a lot of cooking, so it generally is John doing like 80 to 90% of it, and then me coming behind and like helping here and there. We do a weekly date night. We've kind of started that back in the fall, and we've continued to do that. And like a couple weeks ago, we did BuzzFeed quiz night. That was just really fun. Like, I think like there's so many creative ideas out there. It takes like Googling. And tonight is supposed to be karaoke. So at home, we're not going out. We're doing karaoke at home. So I think there's a lot of things that you can do that are, yeah. And when I do want to get out, because sometimes, you're just stuck at home and you're like, I need to get out of the house. I'm very blessed that you love to drive and I love to be a passenger. So we just go on a drive. We like to go driving around neighborhoods. I mean, I guess it's not super exciting, but it gives us an opportunity to just get out of the house and chat and kind of catch up and look at cute houses, because I love to do that.
One of the things that we'll do is drive literally like 5 minutes down the road to the Starbucks parking lot and just sit there and people watch. And we'll just be like, how do you think those two know each other? Or where are they coming from, or where are they going to? Just people watching can be fun. Also, if you're trying to do like game night long distance, one of the games that we've really enjoyed long distance is Code Names, because you can just do it online and still have access to that. Or even charades can be fun long distance. For like an online game night kind of thing. And then I also, when I want to get out, like I love being outside, but yeah, when I don't have a lot of physical energy, or like temperatures, hot or cold, can be difficult for me. Hammocking is fun because you can bundle up as much as you want. You can just sit there and stare at the ducks or whatever, but just be like literally just laying down and resting, but be able to be out and doing something. And this is also another thought. This is maybe just me, but something that helps me feel like this is a special date, even if it's online, even if it's at home, even if it's to the Starbucks parking lot, is to like dress up for those dates. It doesn't necessarily mean doing my hair and makeup. Sometimes it does, but like even just like putting on a dress or like just putting some like lipstick on, even if nothing else, it just like helps me feel like, oh, this is special. Like this is like pursuing each other, and like helps my mindset shift as well. Amber in the chat says that she loves Poetry for Neanderthals 100%. That is a very fun game.
Yes, our friends introduced us to that last year, and yes, it's so fun.
Yeah. Another game that works well long distance, which you're gonna have to excuse my brain fog, but is, I want to say categories. Is that what it's called? Where you like write down like you have a timer and you have to write down things for a list of topics and then or like share them. But it's not something you have to like have a board for or like be able to go back and forth. So that works well as well. It's categories.
Yeah, there's a lot of different online board game simulators that you can do like over Zoom and stuff. For my birthday a couple weeks ago, my family and we did an escape room online. Where you can do like puzzles and stuff and like work your way through like the Hogwarts escape room. So that was super fun. That would be a fun night because it took a long time.
That's a great idea. I love that. Yeah, if anyone has ideas of what you guys have done or what sounds fun to you, even if you haven't done it, put it in the chat. Let's hear your ideas. Oh, I had okay. So before we move on from this, I actually created I think it only has 7 or so, but a low energy date night like guide, like list of several different date ideas. And so that's actually linked below if anyone wants to grab that download. Feel free to. Yeah. But we have a question from Bree. Bree says, maybe slightly off topic. It's dating. Everything's on topic. It's fine. But what if you are really scared of trying to date due to past bad relationships, but guys are regularly trying to flirt with you and ask you on dates? Tabitha, I'm going to pass this over to you.
Oh, Bree. First off, I am very, very sorry that you have had past bad relationships. I know that it's really hard to feel brave enough and safe enough to open up your heart after dealing with after dealing with past hurts. So what I would recommend, obviously, if guys are flirting with you and asking you on dates, but you are just not ready, if you are still scared and still really dealing with the ramifications of past relationships, then my advice would be to just wait and don't put pressure on yourself to jump back in right away. One of the reasons why I didn't start dating until I was 28 is because of some past hurts that I needed to address. And I am very, very glad that I took that time to actually pursue healing first before I started dating. Because once I did start dating, it's kind of like walking into a minefield. Like there's potential triggers everywhere. And so it's really important to first address what's going on in your heart and let the Lord tend to that. One of the things that really helped me in doing that, in sort of unpacking all of that, for some people it might be talking to a counselor. I have talked to a counselor in the past. It might be talking with a mentor, being really honest with a close friend. For me, what helped a lot was just really regularly taking it to the Lord. There were a few months there several years ago that I was just taking it to God in prayer almost daily, really journaling through and trying to get to the root of what was causing me pain, what was causing me to feel unsafe, what was causing me to be I guess suspicious when it came to relationships, and mistrusting of guys in general. So I would say if fear is still something that you are actively wrestling with, if it feels like it's paralyzing you, then I would release any pressure to date right now, and I would pursue healing. Seek God, ask him to heal you. He will. He will, without a doubt, bring healing to your heart and tend to your emotions. It's not always fast. And that's something that I had to kind of accept, was that it wasn't going to be an overnight thing. God often heals us in layers. It takes time. He's a very good shepherd in that way, because he knows how much we can handle at once. And he doesn't just rip open the wound and have us look at everything all at once. He gently leads us through that process. So I hope that's helpful. And yeah, I'll be praying for you, Bree.
It's a difficult situation. Thanks for sharing, Tabitha. Bree, feel free to ask any follow-up questions if there's things that come to mind. We have a couple questions in the chat and we will get to those, but I think that this next question might be a helpful preliminary question to those. When and how should a chronic illness warrior tell a partner about their health challenges? Ashley and John, what did this look like for you guys?
This was something that we talked about last night as well in preparation for this. And it was one of those things, it's so hard because every chronic illness warrior is so different. For one person, they may be in a wheelchair and that's super visible. So like, even if you were to begin dating, like the person would know immediately. Then for other chronic illness warriors, it's more hidden or more nuanced. And so I think it comes down to each individual, how comfortable they are with sharing. I don't think you have to share everything. I don't think you have to put your entire life out on the table the very first date, nor probably should you. But I do think there comes a time when you're dating where you kind of reach a crossroads. Usually, like, I think for most people, it's like, third, fourth, fifth date, or maybe you've been together for a few months and you kind of hit that crossroads where you're like, okay, am I going to continue to pursue this relationship and this person, or am I going to move on? Maybe this person's not for me. And maybe at that point, you want to sit down and have an open, honest conversation with that person and just be like, here's everything that's going on. And let's talk about how we want to move forward with this.
For us, it was just a learning process for both of us because it happened as we started dating. So it was just like going through it together.
Yeah, I feel like our situation was kind of unique in that fact that we started dating the same time I got sick, like within a couple of months. Like I was totally fine, and then all of a sudden I was not fine and could hardly walk, and we were both like, well, this is really strange. So yeah, we kind of walked through that together.
Yeah, I feel like something that I have found is that it's an ongoing conversation. I think I could have before we started dating, like in my head, it was like, oh, like we'll sit down, lay it all out. But like my husband, he didn't have very much experience with health related things at all. And so even trying to explain the basics of things took time and took defining words and took like a learning process. Before it was like, well, let's make a decision about that, or let's think about how we want to approach this as a couple, or if he's ready to like how much he's ready to enter in and how much I want him to enter in at what point. But
and
as
we constantly changing too, like it can change day to day, so you kind of have to ever be flexible, but also like have ever evolving conversations about like, okay, well, here's my limitations today, but they may look different tomorrow. So setting expectations, communication. We'll probably get to that later on. I don't know. I had some notes on communication and how important that is.
Yeah. Well, we'll make sure to get there. Yeah. I don't know. What are the communication things that have been helpful for you guys?
Just
being transparent.
Being as transparent as possible. Yeah. And just like, I think for me, it took me a long time to learn how to communicate effectively when I was dating. And that was something that you actually helped me with as we were dating. You were like, you would tell me, like, I'm not a mind reader. I cannot read your mind. I cannot read your emotions like super well. You need to just tell me exactly what's going on, exactly how you're feeling.
Yeah, that's coming from like the guy perspective too. Is like we're not very good at reading into small things. At least not most of us, I feel. So like it's really helpful to, on the other end of that, is as someone that's either in going into a relationship with someone with chronic illness or both or whatever, is just for guys, just tell them how it is.
Gotta be straightforward. So
yeah, something that's been helpful for my husband and I is throughout like our dating, engagement, marriage, is him asking questions, I think I sometimes didn't know where to start. Like I didn't even know what to start in like sharing what was going on with me. Even in a moment, even sorry, I can't remember. Yeah, like even in one moment of like I forget my whole health history. Like I don't know how to tell you what's going on right now. And so him asking questions was helpful. But there were also questions that I said, I'm not ready to talk about that yet, or I'm not ready to answer that yet. And again, ongoing conversation would circle back there later.
We had moments like that too.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you are dating someone who has a chronic illness, it might be helpful to just start asking questions, even dumb questions. Just kind of and respecting their boundaries. Like it's not all there is to a person. There's so much more to learn about whoever you're dating than just their illness, but being willing to enter and being willing to talk about those things, being willing to not know what you're talking about and still ask those questions, that humility, that willingness to serve is really helpful, I think.
Yeah. I think, I mean, this is something that I asked you, Sarah, like a year or so ago when I was first starting with online dating and, you know, trying to put together a profile and stuff and wrestling with, you know, do I put my health issues on the profile? Like, do I have to disclose that up front? Is the guy going to think that I'm lying to him if I, you know, don't say that like right off the bat? And I ended up, I didn't put it on my profile. And the reason why I didn't is because chronic illness is not who I am as a person. It's something that affects my life for sure, but it's not me. And while it affects my day to day, it is the least interesting thing about me. And I would say that that is true for everybody who's watching now. Like your illness, your health struggles, that is the least interesting thing about you. That is not what makes you who you are. And, you know, just like you wouldn't necessarily go up to somebody, you know, in person on the street and introduce yourself and be like, oh, hi, I'm Tabitha and I have fibromyalgia and chronic pain. And sometimes it's debilitating. Like, you don't have to do that online either. I was seeing in the chat, we've had some questions about online dating. It just because it's online doesn't mean that you have to disclose like all of your personal details. So don't feel like you have to put all of that out front, like, you know, like at the first thing. And then the other thing that I would encourage you to do is just like with anything else that's private and personal in your life, make people earn that information. Just because you are talking with somebody and you met on a dating app or in a Facebook group or even through a friend, like you don't owe them anything as far as information regarding your health. And I would even say that it can be kind of overwhelming if you give them all of, you know, the details right up front. Give it to them in pieces as they earn your trust. And that should be something that proves their trustworthiness, that proves their character. Keep it vague at first. You know, I don't start off telling people, you know, specific diagnoses or how it affects me day to day or all the ways that it, you know, affects my life. All I'll say at first is I have some health issues. I have some chronic health issues, largely chronic pain. And I go from there and see how they respond to that. And sometimes they respond well. And I've had some other people that didn't respond well. But, you know, it's better to give just a little bit and see how they respond to it. And then you can give a little bit more as the relationship progresses and as they earn your trust.
Said Cassie Sky says that helps that to say you won't introduce yourself by your illness in person. Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, That makes sense. As the relationship progresses, there was a point where my husband and I, before we got engaged, had a conversation because there was some things that because I have lived with a chronic illness for years, I have some strong opinions about health and medical care and things like that. And so I don't generally share my opinions on diamonds because it's the more focused on spiritual encouragement here, but I do have those opinions. And so I needed him to be on board with that. I was like, if we are like, as this is getting more serious, like if we're going to pursue marriage and get engaged, I need to know that we are on the same page about these things. Because to me, I felt like I had some unusual deal breakers related to health. And I was like, health isn't all that there is to me as we were getting to know each other and as living life now. But there were some things that I was like, we need to be on the same page about that. And we need to have these serious conversations. And I think those conversations have been super helpful, especially having them before we were facing the situations in person. Again, feel free to circle back if anyone has additional thoughts. But connected to this, we had a question up here from Cassie Sky about not being able to work or talking about finances when trying to meet people. Any tips or thoughts for Cassie Sky?
I think we had another question that was just asked that was really similar, and it made me think that like what Tabitha was just saying about like you wouldn't go and introduce yourself by your illness. I think sometimes like in today's society we put so much like emphasis on like what we do as like our job, like, oh, I'm this and this is my vocation. But I think you could answer that question by like, well, these are some of the things I love to do. These are some of the things that I have done in the past. These are some of the things I am doing right now. Because chances are you probably have hobbies. You have things that you love doing. And I think you can explain that I'm not able to do that right now, but I dream of doing it again, or these are things I can do right now. So hopefully that makes sense.
And it's always okay. If somebody asks you a question and you are not totally comfortable answering it right away, it's totally fine to say, you know what? I'm not quite comfortable answering that right now. Could we circle back to that in a few weeks? Just because somebody asks you a question does not mean that you have to give them the answer. And I totally agree with what Ashley said. Like, one of the things that, or one of my rules of thumb is I never ask a question of whoever it is that I'm dating if I'm not willing to answer it myself. And so if there's a question that you just really don't want to answer yourself, don't ask it of them, because chances are if you ask them, then they're going to be like, here's my answer. And what about you? And so like, that's just like the natural way things flow in conversation. So don't ask a question that you aren't comfortable answering, and don't feel like you have to answer a question that's asked of you if you're not comfortable with it. And it's totally okay to, instead of saying, this is what I do for a job, be like, these are things that I do on the daily that I really enjoy doing. These are some of my favorite hobbies. These are things that I'm really passionate about. I think for a lot of people, their hobbies and their passions reveal a lot more about who they are than even what they do for a living. So it's okay to sort of shift it in that direction.
Sorry, I was muted. John, I wonder if I would love to hear your perspective on like, I don't know, I guess I'm assuming a lot here, but like, I still struggle with this question and I'm married. Like, I still struggle with not necessarily how to tell my husband that I don't make that much money, but it's still just like my work does look different than an average person. And I I still struggle with insecurity about that, or worrying that like I'm not bringing enough financially to a relationship. But John, what would you say to someone that, or to, I don't know if this is a conversation you guys have had, maybe it's not, but like, but for those who are worrying that like that's going to be something that disqualifies them, or I don't know, wondering how people will react to that. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think
Yeah.
there's like two parts to your question here.
There
So
is
like
just whatever
like,
comes to
so,
mind.
like from like a caregiver perspective,
Yeah.
are you asking like from a caregiver's perspective
Yeah.
of like if I can't bring as much to the table
Yeah.
as far as providing, or are you asking of like a man whose drive might be to provide and he feels like he can't?
I was asking from a caregiver perspective, but whatever. And I mean, I know in some ways each of you are caregiving for the other. So just like caregiver perspective, but John, if you have thoughts from a male perspective, please add them.
Yeah, I feel like that from like the caregiver perspective, it's just you got to understand that like with Ashley over the years, she's had jobs she has not worked or worked, just depending on where she was at with her chronic illness. And you know, it's like if the money is what makes a relationship, then you're thinking about it the wrong way, because like the job, your salary isn't what you know shouldn't make a
Your
really
marriage.
big
Yeah.
your marriage or your relationship.
I mean, it can definitely put some strain on a marriage just
Yeah.
because like having tight finances is hard. And we were married young, in college, and I couldn't work. So we know what that financial strain feels like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit limiting, but you know, you just gotta think about it as like you provide the best you can, and you know, God will provide for
God
you.
provides the best.
And you know, even though we didn't make a lot when we were in college and stuff, it was just also kind of bringing us closer together. Having that kind a little bit of you know, strain on that was just creative ways to like come up with how we can, you know, work together or save or you know.
Yeah.
So
it definitely forces you to be creative
Yeah.
in all areas.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like that could be blanket advice for dating with a chronic illness is be creative. Like be creative.
Flexible, be creative, yes.
And where you're looking for people, and
so much grace.
As a caregiver too, because like,
yes,
you might have expectations, but you know, you just have to be willing to.
And I have to have grace with John too, that he's not a perfect human. Like there is not a perfect spouse out there. There will be times when we all sin, and like he gets mad at me for something. Like maybe he gets frustrated. Normally, like 90% of the time, if we have to cancel something, you're totally chill. You pivot. But you know, sometimes we're human. Sometimes we get disappointed, and sometimes we express that. And that's where I have to have grace and show like, okay, well, you know, he's disappointed, and that's okay. And like, so yeah. Grace. Lots of grace.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, we're gonna finish up with this one question because I want to make sure we didn't miss it. But just any general tips for online dating?
I have a few.
Go for it.
First tip would be to have community around you. One of the things that I did when I first started venturing into the world of online dating was I set up a message group with my best friend and my mentor. And I was like, okay, look, this is what I'm going to do. These are the rules that I've set in place for myself. These are, you know, the boundaries that I've set. And, you know, I just want to be able to, you know, if I have questions or something, is it okay if I, you know, send you guys screenshots or, you know, ask you guys for advice or questions or whatever. And basically just invited them into the journey with me, because online dating can be very, very isolating, even more than, you know, regular dating. And having that community set up in place was a lifesaver for me. I cannot tell you how many times they would catch yellow or red flags that I wasn't seeing. How many good questions they brought up. And they were like, you know what? I think you should ask for clarity on this. I think you should, maybe broach this subject. And having that was it was just such a lifesaver. So date and community is number one. And this is for online dating or regular dating. I don't care. You need to have good, godly, wise people around you that will watch your back, because the world is scary. Secondly would be take breaks as needed. There were a few times last year where I got really discouraged comparing myself to what I was seeing guys say that they were looking for. I did not anticipate like seeing these standards of, I'm looking for a girl who wants to be my gym buddy and go to the gym with me 5 days a week, and who wants to go hiking on the weekends, and who wants to, be my adventure buddy and, take these, trips to the jungle and, go like parasailing and all this stuff that physically sounds exhausting to me. Some of it even like impossible for me. And so it got kind of discouraging, because I was, comparing myself to what these guys were saying they wanted. And there were a couple of months last year that it really sort of affected just my self-esteem of like, gosh, if that's what guys are wanting, like I'm not it. Like I may as well throw in the towel now. So if you start to have those feelings in online dating, if you're reading all of these things and, thinking, gosh, I don't measure up there, take a break. Like, take a break. It is okay to take a break. And just because you take a break doesn't mean that you're giving up, and it doesn't mean that God can't be working in the meantime. But never feel like you have to like date from a place of desperation, you know. You are valuable because you are made by an almighty creator, and he makes good things. So you are valuable. And just like social media, online dating can sometimes try to chip away at that. So don't let it. Put up that boundary. And then I guess something else would just be set some really good boundaries regarding, I think you also said that you dealt with brain fog. So one mistake that I made last year, I'm just going to kind of wrap myself out here right now. I got a message from a guy last year when I was like in the middle of a pain flare. And it was like massive fibro flare. I'd eaten gluten, like it was bad. And I was just like sort of crashed on the couch, and I answered. And he responded with compassion, and, because he was, asking how my day was. And I'm like, oh, I'm dealing with some chronic pain, it hasn't been such a great day. And he responded with compassion. Just because somebody responds with compassion to your chronic illness, don't let that blind you from other red flags and yellow flags that may be presenting themselves. And I would even say, like, if you are in a flare, it's probably best not to be responding to messages. It's best to be feeling clear-headed, to feel like you are really wise and discerning in the moments when you're interacting with other people. So I don't know if all of that made sense. If you have follow-up questions, ask. But yeah, just lots of boundaries, I think, is a big one with online dating.
Here's the follow-up question. What are those boundaries you set for yourself?
Well, one of them that I said was to have like a don't message a stranger, in the middle of a flare. Because, if you're feeling particularly foggy or you're just extra tired or whatever, you might be missing some things that you would usually catch. I think it's also important to, if with online dating especially, you can pretty much be messaging somebody 24/7. And whereas if you're dating in person, you go on the date, you talk, and then, you part your ways when the date is over. But with online dating, there's that temptation to just be like messaging back and forth, 24/7 all the time. And it's really good to have some cutoff times, to have some limits, to be like, at this time every single night, I'm going to put the phone away. Or one thing that I have done is once a week, I would just not get on the apps at all. And I would just take a break entirely. I think also, having, I don't want to say a list, because I think some people put together really superficial lists of like, oh, I want a guy who can play guitar, or I want a guy with blue eyes. Like, that's superficial. That's not necessary. But writing out a list of the character traits that you're looking for, of the qualities, and the standards that this guy is going to have to meet in order to be a potential husband for you, is so incredibly helpful. If you've got deal breakers, write them down. Like, have that on paper so you can remind yourself, because there are probably going to be some times where you've got somebody who maybe sounds pretty good, and you're thinking, well, maybe this is a good idea. But maybe they have sort of like crossed a couple of your deal breakers, but you're like, oh, but in every other respect, they're pretty good. No, in the long run, you're going to be happy if you stick with your boundaries, if you stick with your standards, and don't settle.
Well said. Well, with that, we are out of time. Thank you, all three of you, for sticking around a little longer to get through these questions. If you guys have more questions for us, I put the links below in the description of this video to connect with Ashley, Tabitha, or I. And I know Tabitha especially spends a lot of time on the Diamonds community, and she's a very wise person. She's the person I call for relationship advice. So the Diamonds Conference website is below as well. And over there, you can find like the past events we've done. You can sign up for our email list and get notified. You can join our free online community. So find that link below as well. And then also, I did create a list of, I think 6, I'm not certain, but I think 6, at least 6 date ideas for those who are chronically ill, or those who have low energy. So that is also below. It's also free. All the free things. And we're also going to leave this up on YouTube. Not doing the all access pass like we normally do. So if you know someone who would be encouraged by this, if you are dating someone and you want them to understand where you're coming from, send them this link, so that feel free to share it as much as you want. But without, we don't have anything else for you except, oh, I almost forgot, we have a giveaway, as always, thanks to our amazing sponsorship coordinator, Lauren. And so we have 3 items that we are giving away. One I actually have here, so give me 1 second to find it on my, maybe not. I know it's here, but I can't find it. But Together Through the Storms by Jeff and Sarah Walton. This is a book that is written especially for chronically ill couples, or couples where there's one with a chronic illness. And so Together Through the Storms is a great book. If you haven't got it, go grab it. But the winner of this is Lauren B. Congratulations, Lauren. And then we also have Bible Memory Pro, Bible so sorry, donated a Bible Memory Pro lifetime license. So shout out to them. That goes to Cassie C. And then Sarah Holman has donated a copy of her book, Emmeline. And the winner of that is Mary Ann C. Emmeline is a Emma, like Jane Austen's Emma, historical fiction retelling. I feel like it's set in the, I don't remember what century, or like I don't remember when, but it's fun. I've read it. It's quite fun. I recommend it. Again, the theme of love and Valentine's Day and all of those things. So congratulations to Lauren B, Cassie C, and Mary Ann C. We will contact you with more information later this week, next week, so that you can claim your items. But thank you so much, Ashley, John, Tabitha. Really appreciate you sharing your experience and your expertise. We'll see everyone soon.